All right, what's up, everyone? Welcome into DodgerHeads Live, presented by DodgerBlue.com, your home for the defending World Series champion Los Angeles Dodgers. And we've got some real baseball to talk about today, Daniel, which is exciting stuff. But we got to start with the headline, and that's some good news for you. Big congrats to Daniel. Got yourself a little bit of a promotion with the company, moving over more onto the Lakers side. You'll still be here, but congratulations. I know you're pretty excited about that.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'll be focusing mainly on Lakers, but yeah, I'm still gonna plan on doing this Dodger head show with you. I couldn't give that up. Too much fun every week, even multiple times a week once the season gets started. I'm sure, but yeah, I'm excited. I'm ready to take on this challenge. But tonight, I'm excited to talk some Dodgers because, like you said, we got some actual baseball to talk about.
I'm normally not much of a spring training guy. I'm going to be perfectly honest about that. Like, I've watched 13 innings of spring training baseball in the last 2 days. I'm not sure I watched 13 innings of spring training baseball. I guess last year I got really into those summer camp games for whatever reason. But normally not a big spring training guy. But this year I'm excited. This team's going to be really good. So here's the plan for the show. We're going to discuss some of the headlines from the last couple days, namely Trevor Bauer making his debut today, I think is the big story. And then we'll get into two segments that I'm pretty excited about to introduce tonight for the rest of the season. The first is stock up and stock down. I know that's weird to think about with 13 innings, but basically it'll make more sense as the spring goes on. But who are guys who have improved their stock? Who are guys that may be trending in the wrong direction? And then the return of last week's new segment, Big Deal, Small Deal, where we comb through some of the quotes from the week and ask you, Daniel, what to make of it. Is this a big deal or not a big deal? But we'll start with the biggest news. Trevor Bauer, the most expensive pitcher in baseball, the defending Cy Young champ, starts today for the Dodgers, makes his debut. 2 innings, just under 30 pitches, no runs allowed, 1 hit, 2 strikeouts. I know it's spring training, but what were your initial impressions of Trevor Bauer's debut?
I thought he looked good. I mean, he started off a little slow. He was struggling with his command a little bit, gave up a leadoff single, but then he was lights out from there, especially in the second inning when I believe he struck out 2 in that inning. But yeah, he looked really good, especially considering it's the first outing of spring. Like, you're not expecting too much out of these guys in their first outing. They haven't pitched, they haven't faced hitters in a while. They haven't built up. They're still in the process of getting built up. He only
Yeah.
went 2 innings today, but from what I saw, I thought he looked good. His breaking ball looked really good, and yeah, I'm excited to see more.
It is interesting to think about spring training. I mean, the biggest thing for me, I think it got mentioned on the broadcast yesterday by Joe Davis, is kind of the difference between 2019 and 2020 Trevor Bauer. Now, he had an interview, a post-game interview, I believe today, saying, hey, if you go back, I was actually hurt in 2019. I don't know. I wasn't deep into the
Yeah.
Trevor Bauer archives of 2019. He says he was hurt. That explains why 2018 was great, 2020 was great, 2019 wasn't. But to Joe Davis's point, and this is kind of what Bauer hinted at, is the biggest gap was control. Bauer said when he hurt his ankle, he had torn ligaments, he kept playing, he couldn't control the ball. And so 2019, he had one of the worst walk rates in all of baseball. 2020, he had like the 7th best. So that was kind of the thing that I'm watching from him. I know this is spring training, but is control. And he looked good. I mean, his first batter of the game, he was a little bit all over the place. I think Dave Roberts said he was overthrowing the ball a little bit. But from there, he gives up a hit, the pop out, does throw a wild pitch, gets the ground out, and then the second inning, he absolutely cruised. The breaking ball was filthy. He just threw breaking ball, breaking ball, breaking ball in
Yeah.
the second. We did get the patented Trevor Bauer tell the guy a fastball is coming
Yeah.
move. But overall, I mean, it's hard not to like what you see. Again, no runs, 2 strikeouts. He looked pretty good, all things considered.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you could have expected much more in a spring training debut. Like you said, though, it's all about the command with him. We know he's got great stuff, so it's just a matter of if he could throw it where he wants to, and when he can, he's pretty much unhittable, which was,
Yeah.
almost the case all of 2020. So yeah, he looked good today. I don't think there's a whole lot to take away from it, but I mean, it's hard not to get excited, adding that guy to the Dodgers rotation, which was already really good. And we're gonna see Walker Bueller tomorrow, and there, it just goes on and on down the list. I mean, it's fun.
Yeah, and I mean, this kind of leads into a question I've been thinking about. I'm curious to people joining us on YouTube, Facebook, Periscope. We appreciate you joining us. What do you look for in spring training? Like, I feel like if a guy gets a hit, I'm fired up. But then when a guy strikes out, I'm like, nah, it's spring training. Who cares? Small sample size,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
So, like, I know there's no consistency in me, but for you, Daniel, when you're watching spring training and dialing in and you see Mookie Betts at bat or Corey Seager at bat or Trevor Bauer on the mound, how much stuff? I mean, what are you watching for? Does any of this matter to you?
I guess it just depends on who it is. Like with like Mookie and Seager and Turner, like I'm not looking for anything. They know what they need to do to get ready for the season. It's
Yeah.
just a matter of getting a certain number of at bats, seeing different pitches. But there are definitely guys who you're looking out for and you're looking for results, like guys like Gavin Lux, who
Yeah.
we're going to talk about all these guys throughout the show. Zach McKinstry, a lot of the prospects. You want to see those guys have some success. Maybe not this early, like it's the first two games and they haven't played in a long time. But I'd say as the spring goes along, you want to see a lot of the younger guys having some success. And with the pitchers, for me, I'm looking for, which is kind of unfortunate, I'm looking for velocity. And on the broadcast, we're not getting that right now, which kind of sucks. Maybe throughout the spring they'll put it in at some point. But that's kind of what I'm looking for with the pitchers is how does their stuff play. And velocity, which we can't see on TV right now.
Yeah, no, that is bizarre that I saw Future Dodgers, our friend Justin was tweeting, hey, does anybody have it? And I was like, I didn't even think. Maybe the radar gun guy didn't pass COVID protocols or something like that. We'll see. But yeah, I'm with you. I find myself, maybe the reason I like spring training more is because I'm more dialed into the prospects. I'm more dialed into the young guys in the organization. And that's really it. As weird as it sounds, like I don't really care about seeing Mookie Betts play a ton in spring training. Like I would almost rather see Michael Busch take at bats than Mookie Betts take at bats, just because I know it's the only time I'm going to get to see him. And you hear about this hype, and it's kind of the opportunity. Of course, I love seeing Mookie lead off in night one, or game number one. So it is interesting though, like picking and choosing what matters, what doesn't. Now, if you're the Dodgers, everything's been good so far. They win 2-1 the first game. They win 10-0 the second game. Their pitchers have allowed 4 hits in 13 innings. So, as you said, we're going to get to it. But let's get straight into a segment that I think is going to be a fun one, which is stock up and stock down. Now, the goal each week is not going to just be like, here's 3 guys doing great. We're going to try and be honest. 13 innings, 2 wins. It's hard to be too difficult. And I'm going to take a funny twist on it this week. But, Daniel, I'm going to let you start. I asked you to pick 3 players, guys whose stock are either going up or down over the last 2 days. So give me your first one. This is not in any particular order, but stock up number 1. Who do you got?
All right. Well, let me just say I got 4 total.
Whoa.
3
breaking
up,
the
1
rules.
down.
Week number 1, Daniel. Already breaking the rules. I say 3. You give me 4. What's up with this?
I wasn't sure who you were going to pick, so I had a 4th one just in case you took one of my guys. But number 1 for me is Zach McKinstry, stock up. We've heard a lot about this guy. We've seen a little from him, but from everyone who's in the organization loves him, and we've kind of got a glimpse of it over the last 2 days. He's had a hit in each game.
Yeah.
We know he could play all over the field defensively. He's looked good at second base. He'll play other positions as well. But for me, this is a big spring for him. He's trying to crack the opening day roster, and to this point, we've only heard good things about this guy. We heard Dave Roberts saying good things about him. AJ Pollock was saying good things about him. So it seems his teammates like him, and I think there's a roster spot to be had for him if he could continue, to play at this level.
Yeah, I think it was AJ Pollock that said this guy's absolutely going to rake. I love the story. 33rd round pick. Ned Coletti on the baseball broadcast today, he's like, oh, this guy's a baseball player. They used to be all baseball players, but, nowadays you got a lot of athletes. This guy's a baseball player, which, whatever. But there is something about McKinstry. I love watching him swing. I love watching him hit. And, I tweeted this out yesterday, but what I'm excited about McKinstry, and this isn't a knock on Kike Hernandez, but McKinstry feels way more like Chris Taylor than he does Kike Hernandez. And some people might be like, well, what's really the difference? Taylor is a really, really elite, not elite, but way above average hitter who plays a wide range of positions and plays them well. Kike Hernandez was obviously more defense than he was offense, boomer bust, power, that kind of thing. But I like a lot of what I see with McKinstry, so I like that one for sure.
Yeah. And my second stock up is actually Kenley Jansen.
Whoa, they're my guy. Ring the bell, baby.
That was I had him as I had to get a 4th one because I thought you were going to take him, but he looked really good today. Like I said earlier, we didn't have the velocity, but the stuff looked good. He was 1 pitch away from an immaculate inning. He just went out there and threw strikes and the stuff looked good. 2 strikeouts and a soft grounder. I don't know, if he's going to be able to keep that up. Obviously, I'm not expecting that, but hey, if Kenley Jansen is throwing the ball like that, he could be pretty good this year. And I think he's like a little coming in with a chip on his shoulder because he didn't end last season as the closer. So I feel like he's coming out this year with something to prove. Maybe it's a contract year, and he looked really good in his first outing.
I want to be clear that the Kenley Jansen is better than he was last year. I own that hill, Daniel, and so if you would
You
like to
do,
pay
you
rent,
do.
if you would like to pay rent, I believe I predicted that he would have an ERA under 3
You,
this season.
you
I am
did.
looking like a genius 9 pitches in. I loved, by the way, first thing on the broadcast, they had the backup broadcast team in today, and the guy was. They got to the 9th pitch. He was like afraid to jinx the immaculate inning. He's like, "There's something here. There's something. 8 pitches." I'm like, "It's an immaculate inning. I think you could say it. It's not like we're dealing with the no hitter there." But
In
yeah,
spring training, nonetheless.
totally. Dave Roberts kind of threw out the, hey, Kenley Jansen recovering from COVID last year, maybe impacting him. So I don't mean to downplay that. I know COVID impacts everybody differently. Kenley's got heart stuff. He's a bigger guy, but just he threw that out there. So absolutely agree. Jansen looked fantastic today. As good. I mean, for a guy that coming in with no expectations, who cares spring training? I mean, he was fantastic.
Hey, Trevor Bauer's his throwing partner, so maybe he's already given him a few tips.
Trevor Bauer heard about my bold prediction, and he's trying to do me a solid. So I appreciate that, Trevor.
Yeah. And then I said I got 3 up, 1 down, so I'm gonna do my final up one here. My third stock up is Gavin Lux. He played well today. He had 2 hits, but I'd say more so than his play, it's just the comments that Dave Roberts made after the game, and he basically straight up came out and said that he's expecting Gavin Lux to be the starting second baseman. I think they love Chris Taylor in that utility role. Like, to no surprise, he's really good at it. You don't want to lock a guy like that into one position. So it's kind of up to Lux to kind of handle second base. Obviously not on an everyday basis. Like, Taylor will play there some. McKinstry could get some starts there. But if Gavin Lux could come out and win the starting second base job, I think that kind of moves everyone else down one, totem pole or whatever. And that just makes their bench that much more deadly.
Yeah.
So I liked hearing those comments from Dave Roberts. I think both me and you, something we've talked about is that we want to see Gavin Lux as the starting second baseman. We have not jumped off that bandwagon yet. So I thought it was cool hearing Dave Roberts say that. And then he had 2 knocks today. Yeah. So he's already off to a better start than he was last spring or last summer camp or whatever.
Yeah. And defensively, right? I mean, that was the big question a lot of people had. He had a couple defensive plays he had to make. There was one where he had to go to his left, almost basically into right field, no problems. His first at bat just smashes a ball into left center field. I mean, we're not talking bloop singles. We're gonna get to the official score. Yeah. I've got some issues with the official score in this game today, but yeah, I'm with you. I mean, if I were doing a serious list, Gavin Lux would absolutely be one of those guys because you're sort of like, can he hit? Can he field? Checked every box today. And like you said, I mean, and they mentioned Chris Taylor, as a guy that's going to play really regularly, but kind of said that that's going to be at a bunch of different positions that they almost are penciling Lux into or wanting to pencil him into the everyday second baseman job, just like, nobody's truly an everyday guy except for Bellinger and Seager and Betts probably. But Lux kind of feels like he's on par with Muncy and Pollock and the guys like that. So that was encouraging. Okay, number 4, stock down. I hope this isn't who you're about to say it is, but I'm waiting. I'm ready for it.
I don't know who you're thinking, but my 1 stock down is Matt Beatty. Okay. It's nothing to do with his own doing. Like, I think he played, today. I don't think he played yesterday. Didn't do anything crazy, but it has nothing to do with his play just as much as the rest of the guys around him. And I just don't. I'm looking at the 40-man roster. I'm trying to come up with who's going to take the roster spots, and I just can't find a spot for Matt Beatty. There's so much other talent on this team. 2 guys we just talked about, Lux and McKinstry. I'd put both of those guys ahead of Beatty. Beatty's a left-handed bat, which if he was righty, I think he'd have a better chance, but they already got some lefties off the bench. They got a lineup full of lefties, and Beatty doesn't bring a whole lot of versatility to the table. Like, he could play first base and a little left field, but he can't move around the diamond like a lot of other guys. We got another guy I haven't mentioned is Sheldon Noisy, who looks like he's going to compete for a roster spot as well. So I just don't see a spot for Matt Beatty. I don't know if it'll lead to a trade. I can't see them really sending him to AAA at this point. Like he has nothing really to prove
Yeah.
at that level. So I'm just curious to see how that's going to play out. But for me, I just don't see how he cracks the opening day roster.
Yeah, and it was interesting because he played right field today, and somebody asked Dave Roberts about it. And he said, "Hey, maybe if we give Mookie Betts a day off, we'd like the left-handed bat out there." So, I mean, I guess that's maybe the path if he's the only left-handed guy that they really trust out in right field. That feels far-fetched, but it
Yeah.
is true. I mean, like you don't. Who's the backup right fielder? Like Edwin Rios hasn't really played over there. We haven't seen
Mhm.
Chris Taylor over there. That's not to say a guy like Taylor couldn't do it or McKinstry couldn't do it, but yeah, I mean, well, I got a trivia question for you here in a moment, but Matt Beatty going stock down is actually tied for the team lead in hits so far this spring training year, Daniel. So you got to be careful there. No, I was afraid you were gonna give a knock to my guy Clevenger, and Clevenger's my guy because he's a University of Oregon alum. He's
Yeah,
a Go
well,
Ducks guy.
let me just say, I definitely considered him for stock down just based on the results of his first outing, but I didn't go with him because I have to say I was pretty impressed with his like pure stuff.
Yeah, he got robbed.
His command wasn't there. He got squeezed a little bit. There was an error, so
Yeah.
he kind of had some tough luck in that inning. But I will say his fastball slider combo can end up being pretty deadly. It kind of reminded me a little bit of Tony Cingrani when he was pitching well for the Dodgers. I know it was a pretty short period, but there was a time where he had that high fastball, low slider combo working, and he was almost unhittable. I see that stuff with Clevenger. It may take some time for him to get there. The command needs work, but he's in the best organization to figure that out. The Dodgers do that better than anyone. So I think long term, I'm still high on him, and that's why I didn't, go stock down for him.
Like I said, I mean, as a University of Oregon alum myself, he's the second University of Oregon alum. Can you? This is like obscure trivia question. Can you name the other University of Oregon player to play for the Dodgers last few years? Very, very like fringy guy. And the weird part is he actually went like 3 years at Oregon, had to transfer back home, I think, because of some family health stuff. So he technically didn't graduate from Oregon. Any guesses from you, Daniel?
No.
Kyle Garlick.
Zero.
Kyle Garlick was the University of Oregon guy.
Well, I knew he went to Cal Poly Pomona, so he must have went there after Oregon.
Yes. I know he transferred. I hope I'm right on that. But I'm pretty positive he went to Oregon.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. Kyle Garlick did play at University of Oregon, but Clevenger, he's like my new guy. So I'm gonna lobby on Twitter. I got to come up with my plan for how we get him on the show, so we could just talk about the Oregon Ducks, how they're the supreme Pac-12 power in just about everything, except baseball, unfortunately. But I'm sure there. But yeah. So Beatty. I mean, 2 hits, but yeah, I'm with you. It just like you see these other guys, and you're like, are you really gonna take a guy like Beatty over even DJ Peters, who had a home run today, or Matt Davidson, who had a home run the first? It's like there's other guys that just feel like the ceiling is so much higher, whereas what the floor is of Beatty. He's a competent player. Again, I think he'd be in a 4-man outfield rotation in just about in most places around the league. He'd start for a team like the Rockies and some of these other garbage teams at the bottom of the league. But it's like you said. I think you said it perfectly. It has less to do with him and more to do with everybody. His stock relative to everyone else is going down. A couple other guys. I mean, I just had on here before we get to my kind of jokes. Matt Davidson. I mean, he's an interesting story. We're going to get to him. That home run he hit, like just straight into the wind, turning on a high fastball, was freaking impressive. Oh my gosh, so impressive. DJ Peters today looked great. Home run, diving catch in center field. I mean, he's a guy that just like every time I read the scouting report, it's like impressive. So
when you watch DJ Peters, it's hard not to be impressed. The guy he's huge. 6'6", built like an ox. He's huge, and when you watch him play center field, he's like really athletic out there. And we saw the home run today. He's got incredible power. So the tools are definitely there with DJ Peters. It's just he's got to cut down on the strikeouts. But I'll be curious to see if he's in the mix this year because he's a name that we haven't talked about a whole lot. But he's getting to the point where he's about big league ready.
Yeah. And the last guy, there's a lot of young guys the first day you could have thrown in, but Michael Grove I thought was really impressive. I think somebody tweeted, Chad Moriyama, it might have been him, but basically said Grove looks like he could pitch out of the bullpen for the Dodgers in the playoffs tomorrow. And absolutely. So those are a couple guys, but I decided to go a different direction. And that is, I've got some analysis, some breakdowns that we got to do on some hairs. So the first one is a stock down, and that is for our guy, Justin Turner. The beard. I mean, I just can't. I just can't do
You
it.
don't like it that short?
No, I mean, it's like, it's uncomfortable to look at. Like, I'm just so used to the beard that, I mean, like, I don't know what we do with that. So, that's a stock down for me. Any comments from you on Justin Turner's beard?
As long as it's back by October, that's all I care about. I will say though, just not on his beard, but just Justin Turner overall, he's looking really thin. I think he's in great shape. So I'll be curious to see how he looks defensively.
Okay, stock up. Do you want to take a guess on who stock up is here? We're in the hair department.
Andre Jackson is on this list somewhere.
Andre
I know that.
Jackson. Oh my goodness. The flow on this guy. I mean, Dustin May thought he had it comfortable as the best hair in the organization. And Andre Jackson's got the beard combo. He had the hair, the wind blowing from his back. I mean, I think it was oral. He's like, this guy's got to get a hair tie. It's about to blow into his face. But Andre Jackson, stock way up. A, good pitcher. B, I mean, the hair is really impressive, like the beard combo. And we've got one more. This is a stock down. I don't know how you're going to feel about this one. It's Tony Gonsolin. I mean, the hair, just, it's getting to like ponytail stuff. It's like getting to the status where it's just a little greasy. I mean, I'm all pro like long hair, but Gonsolin's hair today, it came out and I was like, I mean, it might be time for a haircut for Tony.
Yeah, his beard's getting out of control too. He just looks like one of those guys that never showers, which I guess you like having at least one or two of those guys on your team. They kind of scare the opponents. Yeah. But yeah, he looks like a pirate, honestly, is what he's looking like.
I mean, we talk about cat ladies. Cat lady has a negative stereotype. Gonsolin I know is a cat guy. But yeah, I don't know. Gonsolin, I think we just need to clean that up a tad. Like that's just where I'm thinking. So those are my stock up and stock down. I'll throw one more stock down. That's for whoever was the official scorer for today's game between the Dodgers and Rockies. How many errors do you think the Rockies were credited with today, Daniel?
I'd hope at least like 2 or 3. I don't know.
They were given one error. Error. I mean, like, so like some of these guys, like it's like fly balls that drop in between 3 players. The second baseman boots one, missed guy overthrow. I mean, the third baseman can't make a play at third. I mean, shameful on the Rockies playing defense today. One of the most pathetic professional performances I've ever seen defensively, but also stock down for the official scorer because that was no good for me.
Yeah, and stock down on the Rockies as a whole. That was a horrible effort today, and that's probably a sneak preview of what their season's gonna look like. They're paying $50 million for their best player to play in St. Louis. So have fun, Rockies fans. It's going to be a long year.
Okay, trivia question for you, Daniel, and I've got no prize for you, but there are 5 Dodgers who have 2 hits so far in the spring training. So part of this is probably pretty jacked up because some guys you're thinking may have reached on error and they got credited with a base hit.
Yeah.
But I'll let the people in the chat guess as well here. 5 Dodgers who have 2 hits so far in spring training.
Okay, well, you said Matt Beatty.
Matt Beatty, 2 for 4. He played both days. He was apparently forgettable for you in day 1, but he played both days.
Gavin Lux had 2 hits.
Jason and you both nailed Gavin Lux.
McKinstry has a hit in each game.
McKinstry's 2 for 4, so another guy who played both games. We got 2 more. One of these
3
guys reached on an error today. Like, definitely should have been an error, I think.
Shoot. Did Will Smith have 2
Will
hits?
Smith, 2 for 3. Will Smith, 2 for 3. Okay.
Which, no surprise there. That guy just gets out of bed.
Because did he come into the game yesterday and play today, or did he just get 3 at-bats? Maybe he just got 3 at-bats today.
I think he just got 3 at-bats.
But I think he was one of, I'm pretty sure, one of those I think probably was a little dicey.
Yeah, I think so as well. DJ Peters.
There you go. Noah Naftalin got it at the same time.
5
DJ Peters, 2 for 2. His second one was a pop fly that dropped in between three fielders that made no attempt to get it.
He made up for it with the homer. That should count for 2 hits alone. So
yeah. Jason is guessing Seager. Seager did not play today, so that was his problem. He got 1 hit. He had the RBI.
He went 1 for 2 yesterday, which. Just another day at the office.
I mean, come on, folks. If Seager had 2 hits, Daniel would have been all over. It would have been the first name out of his mouth if Corey Seager
absolutely.
had 2 hits.
I knew for a fact he was not one of them.
Well, I mean, let's talk. So yesterday, we could go through these games really quick, and then we'll get to big deal or no deal. So game 1, Corey Seager gets an RBI single. My guy Clevenger, as we talked about, a little bit robbed. But kind of the headlines for me, Matt Davidson gets the home run, the go-ahead home run in the 7th inning. The Dodger pitching to me was the story. I didn't pay any attention to the guy who pitched first, Mike Kirkham. I'm Kickham. Apologies to Mike Kickham. Also to whoever was batting cleanup and playing DH, the guy today, he had a double. So shout out to that guy. But for me, the pitching, I was excited to see Edwin Uceda, Dennis Santana, Andre Jackson, Michael Grove, and all of them were really impressive as far as I was concerned. So that was kind of the storyline from game 1 for me was Uceda, Santana, Jackson, and Grove. Cool to see Michael Busch, noisy as you mentioned, but the pitching in game 1 was what I was most excited to see.
Yeah, all those guys were really impressive. And who knows? Those are all guys we could see at one point or another this year in the bullpen. Probably not Michael Grove. I think he's still got some more development to do. But Dennis Santana, we've already seen him at the big league level. So we'll see him at some point. And he looked good. His body looks good. He looks like he put on some muscle.
Yeah.
So he's got great stuff. He's another guy where it just kind of comes down to command. So we'll see how that goes. And then Uceda and Andre Jackson, probably guys who won't make the opening day roster, but I'm sure we'll see them at points in the season, and they both look really good too. Uceda in particular, I was really impressed with that guy. I hadn't really seen him pitch before, so that was cool to see. And then the Matt Davidson thing, I didn't really have him on my radar at all, so I was a little interested to see Dave Roberts after the game. I don't know. Do you have this in your?
Yeah, we'll talk about it in the next quote. Yeah.
Okay, then I'll wait for that. But Matt Davidson, yeah, I mean, he took that pitch at his eyes and hit it over the fence.
Well, and just a fascinating guy. A couple 20 home run seasons elsewhere. He comes in. He's just one of these guys that, like, as a Dodger fan, you're almost trained to think, oh, well, like, we fix guys who used to work and then got broken. And he could totally be a guy that I see go. I mean, we'll see, right? Because they asked him, hey, why would you sign with the Dodgers where there's seemingly no opportunity? And I thought his answer was really fascinating. He basically said, if I go to a bad team that has a pathway to playing time, there's a good chance that at some point they're going to just start playing the younger guy instead of me because they don't actually care about winning. Versus if you come to the Dodgers, and this is something Micah Johnson said that I was really fascinated by when I got a chance to interview him, which is basically like, the one thing everyone knows is that the Dodgers will reward whoever is playing well. Like the Dodgers, all they care about is winning. So if a guy like Davidson knows he can come in and if he can play well and hit, they're not going to be like, oh, sorry, we're committed to Matt Beatty or we're committed to whoever. They're like, if you're the best player to be the right-handed bat off of our bench, then it's going to be you. And not to mention, hey, even if he just comes here, develops himself for a couple months and then goes and gets a job elsewhere, right? But he's absolutely a guy I could see that maybe the Dodgers try and sneak down to AAA. I mean, he's a non-roster, so it's not like they'd have to option him. But if they can get him on a minor league contract, maybe say, hey, watch what happened to Justin Turner. Watch what happened to Max Muncy. They came here, they developed. Neither of those guys. Muncy played a full season in AAA and then came up the next year. But if they can kind of just tweak some things, he could be an interesting one. And as you said, there's a unique piece to his game that we're going to talk about here in a moment. But again, that pit, the wind was blowing like 25 miles an hour straight in, and he gets a fastball up at the shoulders and somehow turns on it. It was pretty impressive. So that was game 1. They win 2-1. Game 2, completely different story. 10-0. Absolute error fest for the Rockies. Apparently not. But we kind of touched on it. Gavin Lux defensively at second base, I thought was the headliner for me. Couple base hits, RBI single, DJ Peters home run and a great catch. Zach McKinstry, another knock. So just another fun one for the Dodgers, but it almost felt like, what are we really learning? Like this team they're playing is such a joke right now.
Yeah, and we saw a lot of their big league relievers in the game today too, and they all look really good. Kenley, we talked about. Gonsolin pitched an inning. You probably missed that inning if you blinked. It was a really quick one. Trinan, he didn't look great. He walked a guy, gave up a hit, but still scoreless inning. And the hit was soft contact. It was a blooper. And I forgot who even closed it out.
Victor Gonzalez.
Victor Gonzalez, too, another quick inning. So all their guys look good. I feel like usually the hitting is ahead of the pitching at the beginning of the spring. But from what I've seen from the Dodger pitching, it looks like it's the opposite. Every guy who stepped on that mound has been ready to go. Looked like they've been throwing bullpens for weeks
Yeah.
now. So that's really cool to see. Yeah, today was a fun one. I mean, 10-0 in 6 innings. Nonetheless,
Yeah.
that's fun baseball right there.
What do you think? I mean, we haven't talked about that. What do you think about the 7 inning game? All the players, all the coaches love it. I mean, a part of the reason,
Yeah.
again, if you're just tracking in, is there is no minor league camp. So typically, when a team is in normal spring training, non-COVID world, they have minor league camp and major league camp going at the same time. They can call up minor league guys. They can play split squad games. Basically, they're so short on bodies that they've shortened these games to 6 innings or 7. Teams can decide ahead of time. I believe after a couple weeks, it goes to 7 to 9. And again, teams decide. They can skip innings, which we haven't done. The Dodgers hit in the bottom of the 6th today, even though they had already won the game. But everybody's positive reaction so far. I like it. I mean, I think it feels like the right amount of baseball, and it feels like, because sometimes you get into these games, and today started, they start bringing in some of these dudes where I'm like, all right, I have no interest in seeing whoever the guy, Ron Hell or something, who, apologies to him, but like some of these guys, I'm like, all right, if we're running out of prospects and major league players, then maybe we should just like call it a game at that point.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. For me, the length has been perfect. In spring, I don't want to sit there and watch 3-4 hours of baseball. And I feel like in the past, like those games have been really long just because you got a lot of different changes. Like you got a new pitcher every inning. You got prospects coming in the 5th, and then other minor league guys coming in the 7th, and that just takes a while. And then you get at the end of the game minor league pitchers who just can't throw a strike, and it drags on for 4 hours, and that's no fun for anybody. So I think 6-7 innings has been perfect so far. Both games have been right around 2 hours. And that's perfect. You get to watch baseball, but you don't have to watch too much baseball. And we've still gotten to see like the main prospects we want to see. They're still getting opportunities, but like you said, it's just the minor league nobodies. No offense to those guys, but those are typically the guys playing innings 7 through 9 of spring training games, and that's just not beneficial for anyone. Like no one's getting anything out of that. So yeah, I'm all on board. 6-7 innings is perfect. It'll go back to 9 as the spring goes because starters will be building up. They'll be throwing 4 or 5 innings, but still, this early in the spring, it's been perfect.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, and it's like you said. I mean, especially when these games are played at noon on a weekday. Like, I don't want to have to go back and watch a 3.5 hour spring training game. They're like an hour 45 to 2:15, somewhere right in that sweet spot. And I mean, who cares if teams win or lose, right? Like, if a team needs to roll over an inning, then so be it. But so far, so good. But yeah, I'm with you. So, all right, well, let's get into a segment we introduced last week, which is where I kind of comb through some of the post-game press conferences and interviews from guys over the week and pull out some quotes and then ask you, Daniel, big deal or no deal on some of these. Some of these are funnier. Some of these are serious. But this one, probably a pretty obvious one. But big deal or no deal that when asked about Walker Buehler, Dave Roberts said, take the under on him throwing 200 innings this year.
I'm gonna say that's not a big deal just because that's what I was expecting. I can't remember when's the last time a Dodger pitcher threw 200 innings. We're going back probably 4 or 5 years for that. And especially with the depth they have this year, they got 7, 8 starters. There's no reason for Walker Buehler to throw 200 innings. I will say the only one who I would expect that to be the case is Trevor Bauer if he stays healthy because he's just a workhorse. But we want to save Buehler for the playoffs. We need him to be 100% in October. That's when he does his best work. I'm still expecting him to have, a great regular season. But if he throws 180 great innings, like that's plenty for me. I don't need 200.
Yeah, no, I mean, exactly. I don't know who's expecting Buehler to be 200. If there was an actual Vegas over-under, it would probably be like 150, basically just betting on can he even get through the season healthy. So, okay, this one's a fun one. Big deal or no deal that Sheldon Noisy played junior Olympic baseball with Corey Seager as a 15-year-old, Daniel?
Hey, he's got some familiarity there. He's got a buddy in the clubhouse. I don't know how close they were. I mean, U15, you said that's going back a full decade there, but that's pretty cool.
Yeah, super random. I saw that. He meant to, somebody was asking him, hey, how's this transition been? He's like, yeah, I mean, because he was traded for Blake Trinan. Is that right or something? Or
He
he
was
came over
traded
with training. That's right.
Blake Trinan it was in the Sean Doolittle
That's
trade.
right. And
And then
Muncy was leaving right about the same time, but he had,
yeah.
oh yeah, Corey Seager and I played junior Olympic baseball. And you could tell the interviewer's like, wait, what? He's like, yeah, we were 15. Like,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Okay. This one was an interesting one. Dave Roberts asked about the lineup. Normally, he kind of feels like you avoid these questions early in the spring, but he basically said, obviously looking at where Mookie, Corey, JT, then kind of Max, Cody, Will Smith in the middle. Now you're talking about the bottom third and Pollock in the middle somewhere, CT kind of in that area toward the back end, Lux and Barnes, and then you kind of have a lot of really other really good options to integrate. So big deal or no deal that Dave Roberts basically has a lineup in mind. Mookie Betts, Corey Seager, Justin Turner, Max Muncy, Cody Bellinger, Will Smith, Pollock, Chris Taylor, and then Gavin Lux batting ninth.
I feel like this is kind of both. Like it's a big deal in the sense, like you just said, like managers typically don't talk about that type of stuff early in the spring. But on at the same time, it's no deal because if you had to guess what order Dave Roberts was thinking of, that was exactly what you would have guessed. Like it's basically how they ended last year.
Yeah.
I will say I was a bit curious to see if he would make any changes. I was thinking maybe move Muncy into the 2-hole just because he walks so much, and then put Seager down third or fourth because he's got the power. He's hitting home runs in the playoffs. He drives and runs. So I was curious to see if they go with that, but if something's not broke, you don't need to fix it. Their lineup produced at a very high level last year. Mookie at the top, Seager right behind him. That's as good as it gets as far as 1-2 goes in baseball right there. And then after that, they got other guys too. So it's basically what I was expecting for the lineup.
Yeah, it's pretty nasty when you think about AJ Pollock, who was third in all of the National League. Basically batting seventh in there. To Jason's point, wouldn't the pitcher be batting ninth? Yes. Gavin Lux, Chris Taylor, both penciled into that lineup in the 8-hole. So you've got Chris Taylor or Gavin Lux batting eighth, and then a pitcher batting ninth.
Crazy.
Absolutely a crazy lineup. Okay, Dave Roberts again. Lots of Dave Roberts quotes. Gavin Lux mechanically, quote, in a considerably better place than he was last year in this time. Also said, I do like the idea of Gavin seeing a good bit of time at second base, potentially shortstop on days Corey might have a day off. Big deal or no deal that Gavin Lux is in a better place this year and getting some time at shortstop as well as second base?
This is a really big deal for me. I've talked on the show, but Gavin Lux, and he's talked about it in the past, how he's a rhythm hitter. He's a big thing with him is mechanics. It's kind of similar to like a Cody Bellinger, like how his swing mechanics kind of directly affects his results. But Lux has said he needs more at bats than most people during spring training just to get right mechanically and to get into a rhythm. So the fact that he's already there basically like in the first week of camp, that's huge, especially when you compare it to last year when he reported to summer camp late and then was never really to get on track. So if he's where he needs to be right now, then I'm expecting big things from him this year. And the second part of that quote we kind of already talked about, but if Gavin Lux is Gavin Lux and he's right mechanically, I think he's going to be the everyday second baseman. I thought it was a bit interesting that Dave Roberts said he might see some time at short too. That's Lux's natural position, but we've all just kind of resided to the fact that he's going to be a second baseman just because of the defensive issues. But if they feel comfortable enough to put him at short, that's got to bode well for his defense.
Yeah, and let's talk about the elephant in the room. The Dodgers have a shortstop under contract for one more season.
Yeah,
and so
that's true.
This is your chance to get reps with Gavin Lux at shortstop, and nobody wants to talk about what if, but let's just play out the hypothetical of Gavin Lux sort of becomes the player that was a top 5 prospect a year ago and has a great season where maybe he hits 300 with 18 home runs, 20 home runs, and a year from now, Corey Seager can't come to an agreement, then all of a sudden you feel a lot better about the shortstop position. You've got a guy like Chris Taylor. You've got a guy like Zach McKinstry who can play second. And not to mention all of this to say, Justin Turner's under contract for 2 seasons. So even if you do bring Corey Seager back, Corey Seager is a guy that could potentially end up at third base long-term. People have been saying that forever. Who knows if it actually happens? But I think that's sort of subtle, and Lux playing some shortstop, I think is an interesting thing. Obviously, it's a big deal that he's in a better place. It looked the part today, which is a great start, as you said. But I don't think it's nothing that Gavin Lux is going to get some reps at shortstop. I'm not saying the Dodgers are casting Corey Seager out, but they obviously have to examine their options. And internally, Gavin Lux is basically the only option Maybe Chris Taylor as an everyday shortstop or something, but Gavin Lux is the best option if Corey Seager somehow, some way doesn't pan out.
Yeah, that's definitely, a good thing to point out there. And Chris Taylor's another guy. This is the last year of his deal too.
Yeah.
So who knows if he'll be back next year. But yeah, the Dodgers don't have to play like Gavin Lux at shortstop. It's not out of necessity. Like they're
Yeah.
gonna have Corey Seager as their everyday guy, and when he needs a break, they got other options. Like Chris Taylor could play there, Zach McKinstry could play there. So
Noisy.
if they're trying to get if they're trying to get Lux there, there's definitely a reason for it, like you just mentioned. So yeah.
Yeah, well, and that leads to the next quote. Corey Seager, quote, "I don't want to talk about contract extensions, to be honest. Big deal or no deal?"
This is no deal for me. This is exactly what I was expecting him to say. Corey Seager is not a guy who's wants to deal with all these distractions. He just wants to go out there and play. So I mean, there's nothing to talk about as far as his contract right now. Like as far as the public goes, like maybe they're having some extension talks behind the scenes, but he's not going to come out and say that.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's a reason to play his hand and say, I want to be a Dodger forever or anything like that. I'm not expecting that either. So this is exactly what I was expecting him to say. You don't want to have people asking you about it, once a week or once a month throughout the season. He just wants to focus on playing.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the Mookie Betts situation last year. It wasn't like the public was, oh, they're going to get an extension done, don't worry. It was not positive outwardly, and then all of a sudden he signs it. So let me ask you this question as we talk about Corey Seager. Mookie Betts signed his contract, I believe, the day before opening day a year ago. What, 0 to 100, the odds that Corey Seager signs a contract extension with the Dodgers before opening day?
I'll say 15%.
Okay, so you're pessimistic on that.
Yeah, I'm not putting it too high. I think he wants to play out the last year of his deal and gets a free agency. And I also think there could be some caution on the Dodgers' side just because, yes, like he's coming off this incredible year where he was, the NLCS MVP, World Series MVP. But at the same time, he's had a lot of health issues in the past. So they want to see if he could do it for a full 162 before they write him that, $250 million check or whatever. So I'm not expecting it to happen. It could happen. I think it makes sense because, if you get it done now, then it could lower the AAV throughout the whole course of the contract, but you'd be taking on more money now, which this year you're over the luxury tax already. So I think it makes sense, but I'm not expecting anything to get done.
And I mean, for me, from my perspective, if it doesn't get done before opening day, you can basically assume that he's going to be a free agent. You agree with that?
Yeah, you don't typically see, in-season contract negotiations. Maybe every once in a while, but players, you don't want to be, worried about that, dealing with that when you're trying to focus on winning a World Series.
I can't remember if we talked. The number that I threw out on one of our shorts was 8 years, $210 million as kind of numbers that that was just if I had to make a guess. What do you think about that number? I mean, that's basically
26, 27 mil or whatever. Yeah, that sounds about right. If he comes out and has another MVP season, maybe that number goes up. But I'd say that's probably fair for both sides. Like 8 years, I think he's 26 years old. So that would put him through, his probably age 35 season. So you're not getting, his later years. Yeah.
You're not getting the Albert Pujols years.
Yeah, exactly. You're not getting the Albert Pujols years. But I think that sounds about right.
Yeah. Okay. Next quote. Dave Roberts expects Cody Bellinger to be ready for opening day. Quote, but if not, that's okay.
Yeah, no big deal for me. That's basically how I see it. Like if he is great, if he's not, like they'll get by without him. They got plenty of other options. If they got to start him on the IL for a couple weeks just to get 100%, that's totally fine. For me, the main thing is that he needs to be 100%. There's no reason for him to rush to be back opening day if that's going to cause future problems.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's part of it's like it's somewhat concerning that maybe he won't be ready for opening day. There were positive reports last I heard that he felt like he was ahead of schedule. But to your point, not a big deal. And who knows? I mean, like if he can't go in center field, that could open up a roster spot maybe for a guy just for the first week or something, just to get their feet wet. I wouldn't expect DJ Peters to be out there. Probably Chris Taylor would be the go-to guy in center field, but that's another roster spot to open up. Okay, two more of these, and this is the one we referred to earlier. Dave Roberts on Matt Davidson. Quote, he's in the mix. Right-handed bat off the bench. He could play third. He could play first. And he's open to the idea of logging some innings out of the bullpen. Matt Davidson, this is his career Career slash line 223 with a 292 on base, 433 slug. Does have 52 career home runs in 293 major league games. Also, 6.1 innings pitched as a major leaguer, 2.84 ERA, 1.26 whip, 3 strikeouts, 3 walks. So Matt Davidson, potentially a two-way player for the Dodgers.
Yeah, this was a big deal to me just because his name wasn't really on my radar at all. But if you really think about it, it makes a lot of sense. We know the Dodgers love versatility. Yeah. This is just taking it to a whole nother level, right? Like he's mainly an infielder. That's what he's been his whole career, but he just started pitching the last few years. And hey, I don't think they'd ever use him in like a close game or anything. But if you're up 6 runs or down 6 runs and you don't want to waste another reliever and you got your third base bench bat there that could go out there and throw 92 and strike some guys out, why not? That's very valuable. With that said, I'm not expecting him to make the opening day roster. It would take maybe an injury or two, but hey, you never know. If they're able to keep him and he starts the year in AAA and they get him on the bump, I think he needs some development as far as pitching goes if he actually wants to take that seriously. Which he could probably get at AAA if he stays with the Dodgers. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see him at some point. Just, 162 game season, that's a grind. You're going to need a lot of bodies. And this is basically like having 2 guys at once.
Yeah. And that's kind of what they've said is like, hey, the idea of, if it's kind of like you said, plus or minus 6 runs in the game and you can save an arm in a season where it's 162 games coming off of 60 games. Absolutely. And he does sound excited. I mean, he said, hey, I always wanted to be a major league pitcher. And then all of a sudden towards the end of high school, he starts smashing the ball and goes that direction. He has pitched a little bit, but that was a fun one. I mean, I recognized that name when the non-roster invitees came out and I was like, oh wait, why do I recognize that game? Oh, he hit 20 home runs twice. He throws 92 and he basically said, yeah, I throw 92 and that's with like no prep and no training or anything. Yeah. So get me into the system here where we got weighted baseballs and a whole deal and we'll go. So definitely interesting one there. Last one. This one's a funny one. Non-Dodger related. Zach Greinke. I don't know if you saw his little interview press conference today, but he had a great quote. I didn't. Zach Greinke, he's eager to get to 10 home runs and 10 stolen bases for his career. He's currently at 9-9, but he's disappointed because he's playing in the American League. So he said he did try to steal last time. He was just too eager. He got caught stealing. So your thoughts, big deal or no deal, Zach Greinke trying to get to 10 home runs and 10 stolen bases?
Yeah, that's such a Zach Greinke quote. There's so many quotes like that from him. There was one where he said like, apparently he was like in the big leagues pitching for the Royals at the beginning of his career. And he like asked the coach to send him back to single A to be a shortstop or something like that. They're like, Zach, you're in the majors pitching. He's like, oh, I want to be a shortstop. Like, send me back to single A. And then also I just saw this recently. Did you see, like, I think it was AJ Ellis who said it. Like, apparently when Zach Greinke was on the Dodgers, he was like struggling in an outing, and AJ Ellis went out to the mound to talk to him, to like calm him down or whatever. And while they were out on the mound, Zach Greinke proposed him a fantasy football trade.
I love that.
Yeah, Zach Greinke's the best. I love that guy.
So one thing I saw, there have only been 4 pitchers since 1900 that have 10 home runs and 10 steals, guys that have pitched more than 50%. So he's eager to do that. But like he said, American League, DH coming. So I don't, maybe they get into some blowouts. Hey. He can start lobbying for some ABs.
Well, and there's going to be some interleague play this year, so That's true. Have like two starts where he's in the lineup. Swing for the fences there, Zach. Yeah, and hey, maybe you get a single and then you steal a base. Who knows?
Yeah, he's going to be lobbying. Put me on all the at NL games. Just pencil me in there.
Yeah,
one of the great.
But hey, I remember him from the Dodgers. He raked. He was a really good hitter.
Yeah. One of the greatest stories. I think it was Bob Gibson and pitching maybe to Bob Uecker. I might be butchering this, but it's a story my dad always told me where Bob Gibson, pitcher, notoriously a nasty guy, just like, and Uecker kind of, so I guess Gibson's struggling and Uecker comes out to give him tips. And he basically says, Bob Uecker asks him about his curveball, and Gibson says to Uecker, he says, the only thing you know about a curveball is that you can't hit it. Now go back behind the plate, basically. It's such a great quote. It's like the only thing you know is you can't hit it. So, well, there you go. That's the last of our big deal, no deal. Zach Greinke trying to get to 10-10. So let's go to some questions here. Throw some mailbag questions in. We got about 8 or 9 minutes left. So we'd love to get to some of these. The first one, Guillermo, perfectly timed through this one in there. He says, what are the odds that Jock Peterson comes back after his season with the Cubs is up? In your mind, I mean, my initial reaction is no chance because like they're not going to want to
Yeah.
pay him anything when they have DJ Peters, Luke Raley, Zach Rex. I mean, just take your pick of these quad A outfielders that they've already got who are, worse than Jock Peterson, but not enough to really mess with it. So I would say very, very low, unless it's like he just has an atrocious season that somehow brings him back on like, a borderline minor league deal.
Yeah, yeah, I'm with you. I don't think there's much of a chance there. The Dodgers have so many guys. They got more guys coming up that they're not gonna. And also, they got a lot of guys to pay. Like, it's not like they could just go out and give money to everyone. They got to save up for when
Yep.
Bellinger's due, Corey Seager next offseason, Walker Buehler. So I don't think they're gonna be rushing to give Jock 10 mil a year or whatever. I will say though, I'm excited to watch him play this year. He's going to be playing every day for the Cubs. It's really the first time in his career he's getting that opportunity. And who knows if he could go out there and hit lefties, he's probably in for a nice little payday next offseason. That's a
Yeah.
big if, of course, but yeah.
Yeah. I will say, I mean, the universal DH a year from now, that would help Jock Peterson's odds. Everybody's expecting that. So, I mean, maybe in a scenario where the Dodgers are allowed to have a DH and the price is right. But like you said, I mean, the Dodgers are not going to break the bank. It would have to be on a team-friendly deal. AJ Pollock mentioned, I mean, Jock's well-liked. It's nothing personal with Jock. It's just that there's just not a fit. So, yeah. Okay. JJ asks, is DJ Peters going to be on the roster for the start of the year? Prediction now, DJ Peters opening day roster, yes or no, Daniel?
I'm gonna say no for the opening day roster, but I do think he's one of the guys who's probably one of the first guys called up at some point. Maybe not first guys, but I'd expect him up by the middle of the year. He's getting up there. I think he's like 25 or 26 at this point, so he's not a whole lot more to accomplish in the minors. But the main thing with him is he's got to cut down on his strikeout rate. He's kind of boom or bust right now, but the power is there, the athleticism is there. He could play all three outfield positions really well. So he's a guy I'm expecting we'll see him in 2021, but I'm gonna say no for opening day roster.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I can't remember how many bench hitters that we sort of projected the Dodgers would carry. Was it like 4? What did we say?
It's four or maybe 5, but usually the Dodgers go with an extra pitcher.
So, I mean, if you consider 4, you've got the backup catcher. There's 1, Austin Barnes. Chris Taylor's a guy we talk a lot about, but if Gavin Lux is your second baseman, then Taylor takes up one of those spots. Right. Edwin Rios, everybody's penciling in, and then McKinstry, you're at 4 already, and we haven't even gotten to Matt Beatty, and we haven't even gotten to some of these other guys. So the odds of Peters are stacked against him. Yes, he had a nice day today. There's still a lot of swing and miss. It's still spring training. So something to keep an eye on. I think, because I'm saying even if there's one injury, like he's probably second or third on the list of guys after that. I think Beatty has a better chance than he does as well.
Yeah, I will say with Peters, he's a guy who the Dodgers, they want to get him as many at-bats as possible. So they're not going to put him on the big league roster just to sit on the bench and start once or twice a week. They want him down in the minors, getting as many at-bats as possible. And then maybe if there's like, let's say Cody Bellinger is injured or Mookie Betts is injured and you need someone to kind of come in and play every day, or not every day, but like play a lot of the time, that's when I think we'd see him come up.
Yeah, Sheldon Noisy, another guy that I didn't even mention. Yeah. I mean, I think that's the list of guys. So he's probably
Matt Davidson is in the mix as well, according to Dave Roberts.
There you go. So I mean, I think you've got Peters, Noisy, Beatty, and Davidson. Those 4 guys are on the outside looking in. So even if you get one injury there, like a guy like Cody Bellinger isn't ready to start the season, I mean, who knows?
Beatty would be the first one, I'd say.
Yeah, I would guess that too. And keep in mind, Cody Thomas had an unbelievable spring last year and didn't even sniff the roster. Now, Peters is far more advanced compared to Thomas, but something to keep in mind there. Okay, we got one last question in here. David Price. Laura Lara wants to know, David Price, your thoughts. Both of us, I think, are high on David Price. He had sort of the StatCast type stuff, the underlying metrics from his 2019 were way better than the actual output. This is a guy who's got a high ceiling. His arm gets a rest. He's in a analytics-driven organization. I'm not saying David Price is going to win the Cy Young or even be an all-star, but I think he's going to be a number 3, number 4 starter as far as league-wide, which for the Dodgers is more than enough for what they're asking for from him.
Yeah, and he's another guy. They'll be able to manage his innings. Like, he's 36 years old at this point. They're not going to put him out there for 180, 200 innings. They'll be able to manage his workload. And he's coming off a year of rest, so his arm, in theory, should be nice and fresh and ready to go. So I'm looking forward to see how he looks like. I'm not sure if they've said when he's going to pitch yet. But that first outing, that'll be fun to watch.
Yeah. And Brian Sevilla mentions DJ Peters, Glendora High School, or
Yep.
Glendora native, I should say. So I
Glendora
love that
High
story
School as well.
Is it Glendora High School?
I played against him, yeah.
There you go. Well, yeah, I mean, just cool when a guy like loves the Dodgers, which they said. So it's sort of a dream for him every time he puts the jersey on.
Yeah, I will say I don't think he was quite this big in college or in high school, but he was still like an absolute beast when he was in high school. I played that Glendora team.
Yeah, well, I mean, I remember we were picking our basketball team for the roster, and DJ Peters was one of my guys. I'm like, this guy's a tank.
He was.
Sign me up for some DJ Peters. So, hey, we appreciate you guys joining us tonight, and as always, I mean, like I said, fun to actually have real baseball to talk. Daniel and I will be here on Monday nights. We've got one thing I'll plug. We've got a couple exciting things. There's a couple players on the roster that I've been messaging that I think we're going to get on the show in the next 7 or 8 days. So I don't want to drop any names in case things don't pan out, but I feel pretty good about both of these. So I'm excited about that. So keep a lookout. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel for when those interviews come out. And then we'll just have updates on games and stuff as they go. Justin Lorber of Future Dodgers, he's going to be here pretty soon, sometime in the next 2 or 3 weeks. He's got a big prospect download that he's going to be posting, and we're going to have him on to talk about that. So as always, we appreciate you. Make sure you're subscribed. Dodger Blue 1958 on YouTube. Notification bell is rung. Thumbs up. We appreciate it. Dodger Blue 1958 on social media everywhere. I know we have a big social media push and awesome giveaway that we've got coming up in the next few weeks. So keep an eye out for that. DodgerBlue.com for all the latest. Daniel, anything else we're missing here?
Nothing else that I could think of. I mean, we got a whole lot more baseball coming up. So by the time we record next, a week from now, we'll be talking about more than just 13 innings.
Yeah. Stock up and stock down. We'll have more than just hair breakdowns.
Yeah, so I'm excited for some more baseball.
Awesome. Well, that's Daniel. Check him.
Walker Buehler pitching tomorrow, so that's already a fun one to watch.
There you go. Well, check out Daniel on Twitter at @DStarkand. I'm at Jeff Spiegel. We appreciate you guys watching. Again, this is the home of your 2020 World Series champion, Los Angeles Dodgers. Never gets old saying that. And as always, Vince Scully's going to take us home.
The best team holding a trophy high in the air. The Los Angeles Dodgers, champions of the baseball world.